Excellent. So I'll tell you where I'm up to at the moment. I'll share my screen. So I've got two desktops here. I'll share my primary. On the left, I've got access to passwords and terminal. So if we need access to keys and stuff, we can do that off screen. Here I've deployed a Vagrant machine. I have cloned the Environment Toolkit and the Performance Toolkit. I'm hoping if we have enough time within the hour, we can also maybe do a quick run through on the Performance Toolkit. Might be wishful thinking, but it's there if we need it. In here, I've deployed it to Ubuntu 18.4.04, as suggested in the docs. I've installed some software as mentioned in the repository, which is I've installed ASDF, Terraform 0.14.4, Ansible, this is the latest version that was on Ubuntu 2.7.17, and Docker. So I've got Docker 2010.5 installed. The other thing I've got ready and waiting is through the Sandbox Cloud Realm. I've deployed an AWS environment and I'm logged into IAM. So if we need to create keys and permissions and stuff like that, that's ready to go. Yeah, and I think that's probably all we need to get started. I'm not sure if there's something else we should do first before beginning, if you have any thoughts about that.
Nothing initially, no. I will take a note of that Ubuntu Python version though, because that Python version is deprecated. But this isn't your fault. This is Python's nonsense of they deprecated too, and then everyone's always been very, not us, like Ubuntu and stuff have always been very slow to move to free is the fault. So I'll take a note of that just to make sure we call it the docs. But 2 will work for now, so you don't need to do anything. But
okay,
yeah.
So for the future, we should be aware that that might be.
It should always be Python free with Ansible, yeah, but everything will still work with 2, even though it's deprecated. But it's always wise to.
I'm just wondering if I have Python 3. I do. I can probably just update a symbolic link somewhere. But if you think it works with 2, let's go with 2.
It should be fine for 2 for now, but yeah, in the future we'll always stick to 3. But it's just that every OS treats it a little bit differently. It's very annoying.
Okay.
So yeah, so as you were speaking before we start recording, yeah, the AWS docs aren't in yet. We will get them in as soon as possible, I promise, which will probably would answer quite a few of your questions, but we'll still continue obviously through it today, and we'll get docs updated. Yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later. We just need to get them in. Generally, we try and paint over the cracks, so to speak, between the different cloud providers and make it all kind of harmonized. But we also do acknowledge each cloud provider is different. They have different little bits and differences here and there, and we also try and balance what we do get to say. So we like in the modules and Terraform and stuff, you'll probably see us actually change the name of things to match exactly what the cloud provider says, because we don't want to cause any major confusion, or we try and balance that as best we can. So you've got a user, an IAM user. I need to remember now how AWS works, so bear with me a second.
Yeah, no worries. So I've got a standard user with a key created under that user, an access key, and that's currently has administrator access. Now, as we're using this in support, I don't think that's a big issue, but if we want to go more granular, we can.
It's fine for today, yeah.
So on my other screen, I have those in front of me: the access key, the secret key, my preferred region, a key pair name for SSH if that's required, and a local private key on my local system, which I can copy onto the background machine if that's needed.
All right, so the first place to start would be with Terraform. The steps that are in the document now for GCP, but the general steps still generally remain. Ultimately, once you've got your login set up and You've got access created. All that's needed is config files for Terraform Ansible for your environment, and then you should just be ready to go. Do you have any config files in Terraform right now?
No, I haven't created anything like that yet.
So I'll send you a link. We actually do have, this is just because we still haven't updated the docs yet, and we still haven't decided how best to share the specific, because the config's obviously always going to be somewhat bespoke, depending on the environment. This is user config, so if you give me a second, I'll send you a link to example config
Sure.
that you can use for AWS. Chat, there you go. I just need to remember now how to actually authenticate against AWS. You see that link I sent in the Zoom chat?
Let me bring it up. Yeah, here we go. Let's kind of paste that into here. So that's 10K AWS.
Let's start Terraform first, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so this is a separate repository with the configurations there.
Yep.
Excellent. So I'll clone.
This is the actual config we use
Yeah.
for our environments. So you will need to tweak it with different names and obviously different things. But
do I just want to clone that into here, or do I want to clone into a separate folder?
you can clone it into a separate folder for now, because this is kind of where the prep needs to be done essentially.
Yep. Understood.
The idea is that so how we do is that we still check out a separate repository, but then we actually have a little script that copies the files into the right places. In the docs, what we'll do is we'll be discussing it manually. You see, because the idea is that obviously someone's just creating it from scratch. So there's folders in Get itself where you should be putting config, but you need to write the config yourself. That's the idea. If you have an automated instance, then it would be recommended to stay in a separate repo, and then you just copy it in for the relevant environment you want to run with, just like any other tool, really. Like GitLab, you'd set up the GitLab RP file.
Yeah, so you can store your own configuration in version control. And
yeah, well, one thing I'll call it is that this repo will have passwords in it, so be careful not to show on screen, I guess.
okay.
I will have a quick check and see what's in there.
So this is a private project?
That should be fine. Yeah, the only thing probably not to show on screen is a particular file in Ansible inventory, which contains various passwords for the GitLab application.
Okay.
So I'll write in chat. It's just so just so you know that not to open up the Ansible inventory /vars.yaml file. The rest should be clear.
Okay.
To show. So just to call that out. So bear with me a second while I just remember how to authenticate with Terraform against it. But yeah, if you can pretty much, you've got, so copy the Terraform folder into the, so if you go to the main get folder, you'll see this Ansible Terraform. If you go into Terraform, what you should see is, well, let's have a look what's inside it. So you see the environments folder. In that environments folder should be empty.
Yep.
Except for the README. Yep. So you copy the environment, the Terraform folder into here under the name you want to give this environment. So copy the Terraform folder from the other repo into here, which is just the config file, really.
Yep.
For Terraform. 10K AWS in this case.
That look correct?
Yep.
Well, I need to do recursive.
Yeah.
That should work, I think.
So this will be a different way that's actually covered in the docs. The docs will say create your own folder in the environments folder and then create the free config files that's required. But this way we're just kind of shortcutting it.
Yeah, this is better for the support team anyway, because
well, it's better to have examples, yeah.
Yeah.
So the only thing to call out is that you can change that, just to be clear, you can change the name of that Terraform folder to whatever you want to call it, 10K support example, whatever. Yeah, the name of the environment essentially, which is what you want.
Yep. That'd be good.
That's fine. So if you go into that, we'll go through the three files quickly. The first file will be the main TF file. If you just want to show the output for that and see what's in it. That talks about the Terraform required version. Change that to 14.4. Yeah. For 14, again in the docs, we'll just proffer what the current version we've tested with is. For 14 Terraform, they claim that minor versions can read each other's state files. I've not yet actually tried that, so I'm still not recommending that yet. But because right before 14, it was a very much a strict requirement. Everyone must have the same Terraform version. So we're still maintaining that for now, but we'll test out later. But yeah, 14.4 is fine here. Hashcart AWS obviously is using, yeah, I think that's the latest version of the Hashcart AWS module. And then it's just configuring the provider. You could change that to a different region if you wish, as long as it's the same across.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
are there any AMIs that will be used?
Yeah, the AMI will be used. Yeah, the Terraform modules should pick up the AMI, should detect the AMI automatically.
So if I choose a different region, it'll use the AMI from that region. Is that right?
Famous last words. It should. Yes. I've not tested that yet, so we'll see how it goes.
But yeah. We'll give it a go. Yep.
It should be fine. It should detect it.
Yep. So on AP Southeast. Should. Cool. Exit out of here.
Yep, that should be fine. And then you go into the variables TF file next.
Okay. I'll change QA to support.
Yeah, that would be the prefix is used in various places, but it's basically used to name various things in the cloud provider. So it'll be the name of VMs, the prefix for the name of the VMs, maybe some object storages as well, that kind of stuff. So yeah, you choose just what you need. And then yeah, that SSH key path needs to be changed to an SSH key that you have.
All right, cool. I do actually have one here.
So just need to switch to the path on the local.
Yep.
Because then I'll upload that for you.
I'm going to have to transfer it into the Vagrant machine. Just cut and paste it on my other screen.
Yeah, the path doesn't really matter here. We put all our keys into an encrypted folder, but again, it's up to you how you want to handle where your keys live. As long as the path is resolvable, it should be fine.
Okay, so this is the SSH key, which
will be uploaded to the VMs.
Yep.
And which is what Ansible will use when it's running.
Yep. Okay, so it's for Ansible. The reason I ask is because when you create an instance in AWS, it has a key pair assigned to it. So my key is actually a PEM key. So I'm going to have to create a different one, which is fine.
Yeah, in AWS, yeah, there's the key pair stuff. Yeah, the modules that we've written should take that key and create the actual key pair in AWS.
Okay.
So whatever key you have will be put up there. So yeah, if you want to go off and create another one, feel free.
Yeah, let's do it. That's just and if I look at this path, is that which folder would that be relative to?
It's relative to the actual file. So you can either put in a full path or you can do relative to the variables TF file.
What about putting it in like the home folder of my user or something? Would that be?
That's fine if that's how you want to go. Yeah, that's like I say, as long as it's resolvable on the machine, they can go anywhere.
Ah, cool.
We leave that open because we expect different teams and customers in the future to have their own security requirements. And there's so many different ways you can tackle that kind of piece. So we can't really proffer any real recommendations there because everyone will be different. Some people are like, yeah, it's fine to have SSH key in the machine. Others may want to only script to the SSH keys downloaded from a secure place and only used in that particular instance and deleted. It completely depends. So.
Oh, okay. Yep. No worries. Well, I think that will work.
Yeah, if it's there, should be fine.
Yep. I'll just triple check. Pretty sure I was moved in there. And the permissions look good. All right, cool.
Then the last one would be the environment file.
Yep. Yeah, so I think when I tried to do this on my own, I looked at this file and I was thinking, oh, this is a lot to configure.
It's a lot to configure, but it is mostly quite repetitive. But all the things you're trying to expose here are the only things that actually genuinely will need to be configured by the user.
Yeah.
Because they need to be able to configure the size of the machine, obviously. And
I suppose specifically in support, if we've got 109 support engineers and we need to, each of us are going to run this environment. If it's 10K setup, I suppose my thoughts when I meant like a lot to configure was actually how low can we reduce these nodes so that we're not all, to keep the costs down basically.
Yeah, so Get can deploy at minimum a 1K architecture.
Can we just start changing all this to 1?
So no, that's not 1K. We need to go to the reference architecture docs and adjust the file to match what's in the reference architecture. I'll send you a link to it.
Oh, okay.
But at minimum, it's a 1K, which is actually a single node environment, quotation marks. Most of all the core components are on a single node. We separate out the monitoring node and a few other bits just to, because it's meant to be a production environment. So I'll send you the link to it now.
Oh, cool.
All that should be required. So again, this is where the docs are lacking, and this is what we need to tackle. What you want to do is, if you go off and look at the 1K folder in that other repository that you just checked out, and look at the Terraform environment TF file, you'll see what is the equivalent in GCP terms. For AWS, I'll quickly see if I can just quickly translate it for you.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you won't need that. You won't need that. So.
1K here. Yep.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Give me a second, because obviously, as I say, the files aren't interchangeable depending on cloud provider, unfortunately. So.
Oh, it makes sense. Yeah.
Because yeah, each cloud is a little bit different. So, bear with me a second. I'll write you one now, hopefully.
Yep.
Famous last words, but we'll see. The other thing you'll need while I'm writing this is you'll see in the environment file there's that hproxy external elastic IP allocation IDs. That's the only little pain point really of this app, I guess. We have to keep this separate because if you don't, Terraform will control it, and then if someone was to run the Terraform destroy and rebuild the environment, they actually will destroy the actual external IP, and that's annoying because if you have a DNS address associated to that IP, causes problems. So what I recommend is that you go and create your own external IP, and AWS that has this kind of multi-layered situation of you can create an IP, but then has an allocation ID for that IP. So that's what you need to go off and generate yourself to pass into the environment, and then the environment will attach yourself to that ID and as eventually the IP, and that's how you'll be able to access it.
Oh, right. Okay. Do we do that before or after deploying the environment?
It'll be before, yeah. So you should.
Should better do that now.
Yeah. It's nothing special there. It's just simply the same steps. All cloud providers, we recommend you go off and create just a static external IP that'll be attached to by the DH proxy load balancer node once it's out.
Cool. All right, I've got the allocation ID here.
So I think for this demo purposes, you probably don't even need some of that. Like for the 1K, we also have like in the files here we deploy Elastic for advanced search. For demo purposes, not really required.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm just trying to filter through it now and just make sure everything's right. So
Yep.
yeah, all you need is one NFS node, one Rails node, and one HU proxy node. So
All right.
I'll post that in the chat now.
Yeah,
Might
awesome.
be a bit formatted weird. So you just want to replace your top module there with that.
Yep.
And that's a cut down 1K environment essentially. Yeah.
Brilliant. Let's just double space for us. And then I'll update the allocation IDs.
Yeah, you should only have that one there, and then you pop that in there. Yeah.
How does that look now?
Yeah, that looks good. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think you've removed the output section at the bottom.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's
You need
fine.
to put that
So
back in.
it's just I'll post that in the chat. It's just at the bottom. It just helps with seeing
Yep.
what's done at the end. Yeah.
Ah,
AWS Terraform is not very verbose when it comes to its outputs, unless you tell it to be.
Oh, okay. Yep. Cool. All right. How does that look now?
Yep, looks good. Still trying to remember how to authenticate. AWS is a little bit weird, right? Yeah, I've done environment variables. So there's before the cloud providers, there's usually multiple ways to authenticate. Again, we leave that open to the user and how they want to manage that. We will be offering when we update the docs. We will be suggesting what we think is the most straightforward or convenient. Usually be either a combination of environment variables that contain an access key, or using a tool if the cloud provides it, like a CLI where you can log in yourself on your command line, and then Terraform and Ansible should just default to use that, which is quite convenient. But yeah, I'm just looking through it now quickly.
Yeah. I suppose you could even do it with CI variables.
Yeah, CI variables that essentially would be the same as environment variables. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably.
I can
easy.
set the environment variables off screen.
Yeah, so yeah, that's probably right. Why? So I'll send you a link to the docs now. How you want to do this? These are only valid for. It depends on the cloud provider. Again, each one's different. Off the top of my head, I think these should apply. These environment. Some cloud providers will give you. Will say these are the environment variables that we will automatically look for, or we recommend that you look for. So Terraform and Ansible will typically use the same variables, but depending on cloud provider, they might use slightly different ones, which is annoying, but that's just the way it is. But the link I've just sent you there should cover both. So you don't need to set the region because that's set in the file. So all you need is the AWS access key ID and the AWS secret access key,
Okay, cool.
which you should be able to get from your user on the
Yep.
through IAM. So if you set those on your terminal, obviously off screen, then Terraform should be ready to go.
Excellent. Okay. All right, so I'll show it on the screen. That's all right. I'll clear that after recording the video.
Yeah, it should be fine. You'll be able to. You can obviously.
I'm going to delete them
generate
anyway.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Let's go for the resizing of that window. Okay, great.
So let's first try a Terraform Plan command.
Yep, from this
Just
folder.
for the folder, yeah. For Terraform, it is annoyingly quite particular where you run it from. So we've went for the actual config folder, yeah. So that's why you see some relative paths and stuff because everything's designed to run from there. So yeah, just try that. See how it goes. Nothing will actually change.
That's weird.
You need to ASDF global Terraform 0.14.4. Terraform's not very good at managing its versions.
Okay.
And as I say, the previous restriction.
I'm pretty sure if I do Terraform -v, maybe I'll look there. Yeah, because we did that at the start of the call, didn't we? So I'll just do ASD.
Install Terraform. Oh yeah, try plugin and see if it's actually installed. Yeah.
Plugin add was it?
I think it is add. Yeah.
Plugin add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. What's that actual error saying? Please install version running following, or add one of the following version 2.5. Okay.
Did you originally install Terraform through ASDF or did you just download it?
Yeah, I
think
installed it through ASDF.
I think it's probably is what it needs to know what the okay, so if you go back to your terminal, I'll know what's going on. Sorry. What we've done for the ASDF is that it's better. You need to actually have a small config file in this folder that tells it what version to use. That's what I was asking for. So if you create, it should have been in the. If you copy the folder, do you have? Is there a .tools-versions file already in that folder?
Yep.
That's what it should be reading. So that's probably where it's getting confused. So let's see what that says. It probably is 12.18. Yeah. So you want to change that to 14.4. Sorry.
That's all right. This is where it really helps to have your team on the call. I think. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well, that should be. It should be called in the docs already, but it's worth just making sure that's highlighted. Yeah. It's only because you've copied and pasted our config, which isn't always up to date. So, we'll get that sorted out. So try that now. Fair point. So you want to do a Terraform init first. I should have called out. Again, never kind of outside of the specific stuff. These commands are covered already in the docs. So
yep. Excellent. So if I was to look at the docs, we're sort of past where it'll be GCP specific. Is that right? And now we're moved on to.
I mean, it'd be under GC. Well, let's have a look at the docs.
It'd be under.
See what they actually say. So. Yeah, so set up the kit virus config, which is what we've done. If you want to go back up to the top, sorry, and just have a look at the table of contents, and we can actually see where you want to go. So what we did there is exactly what we've just done. Slight different order. We went to variables, main, environment, set up authentication. We're literally following the steps, even though I didn't mean that to be the case. And then you want to go to step 3 now, provision, which should be platform agnostic.
Yeah, excellent. Awesome.
So feel free to run through those.
Yeah. So that was a success, looks like.
Yep. You can do a Terraform plan just to see what it will claim it will do, or if you want to actually move on to actually doing it, is Terraform apply.
Oh, okay, cool. So if in it, we'll do a plan. I'd like to see what it looks like. We do have some Terraform experience on the team.
Yeah.
It's new to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We do say that it's probably worth going off and learning Terraform and Ansible, really, because there's no really get around it. Those are the tools that are the tools now to be used for these kind of things. So it's always good to have that kind of general knowledge base. But it's also fine for you to give it a go yourself, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that's weird.
Interesting formatting there.
Yeah, it's less. I wonder if I should have used more. Cool. So it's like an inventory.
Yeah, it's showing you exactly what it's going to do.
Cool. I'm ready to apply. Looks good to me. It looks like a success.
I mean, yeah. So feel free to try. The Terraform apply will actually have the same output, but then it'll come up with the prompt at the end if you want to do it or not.
I do have a question. Is there anything you would generally look for and apply in the plan? Something that could trip you up and, you know, create 100 machines or something? Or do you just...
The machine counts are all determined by what's in the environment config file. In rare cases, there might be a thing that depends on another thing that the plan might go off and do, but that's all controlled, so there shouldn't be any crazy stuff.
For me, the main thing I look at, I think there was I can't remember what it is, but there's a small summary that basically says what it's going to create, how many things it will create and how many things it will destroy. So if you
it's
look
actually
at that to see that you're not doing something unexpected in the sense of it's going to destroy 30 things and you're like, it shouldn't.
Yeah, that's the 8 mix right there. Yeah, that's the main thing to look for. So I normally Terraform 14 changed this output a little bit, so I actually moved that particular piece of output a wee bit higher.
okay.
So the last thing you'll see in output is the outputs, but then you see it there plan 15 to add 0 to change. And the number might seem a bit high, but it's just because Terraform also is counting not just the VMs, but it's counting like IPs to create for those VMs, and maybe counting other little things it needs to do, firewall rules, networking, that kind of stuff. But 15 seems a bit right for the size environment. So feel free to do a Terraform appliance and see how it goes.
Yeah, excellent. Cool. So that would be the same as the plan, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always, but plan is definitely safe, so that's why it's still sometimes used just to make sure that nothing because obviously once you hit apply and type yes, then it will go off, and if something is a little bit wrong, for example, it can go off and literally delete the entire environment. So yeah, that's fine. Press enter on that. It should be all good to go.
Well, it's gone smoothly so far. Really cool.
That's the goal. Yeah, we try and take away a lot of the pain with the modules. So yeah, there was quite a few particular pain points with AWS. Despite being the biggest provider, it actually was one of the more complicated ones. For example,
really?
we need to go off and create a network for the VMs, which other cloud providers don't require by default. But AWS did, so they can actually communicate with each other, firewall rules. The AMI particularly was quite complicated to solve. Usually you can just tell a provider just to say, I want Ubuntu 18.4, but AWS is, no, I need the actual ID of this specific image of your operating system, which is quite annoying. But and it will be annoying long term, because then the environment in Terraform world needs to always have the ID, even though Ubuntu's been updated 10 times over. If you change the ID, it will go off and try and change the disk, it's just such as cloud life. So that's it. Actually, all deployed now. It always is wise just to wait a minute or two just to let the VMs load up. But you should be able to go into the AWS UI, and you should be able to see the VMs
awesome.
there under your compute VMs list, and they might still show us getting ready, but they should be there.
Yeah, awesome. There they are. Brilliant. So right now it'd be doing a reconfigure and stuff like that. Is that right?
No, no, God, no, no.
Oh, so the
Oh,
AMI
no,
is
no.
actually already installed.
So the AMI is be selected, yeah. So what Terraform does is it's purely provisions. That's Terraform's purpose, and
Ah,
that's all
yeah.
it can. That's all it should do. I mean, people have tried to bend it to do other stuff, but it never truly works. And that's why we use two tools. That's why it's a toolkit. We have Ansible to do
I
the
forgot about
actual
Ansible. Yeah.
configure. Yeah, if only it was that easy, I guess. But Terraform is only all Terraform's done is set up the VMs and the networking, firewall rules, that kind of stuff. But the VMs are now just blank, well, empty Ubuntu machines. So now you need to go to the Terraform piece.
Yep.
The Ansible piece, sorry. So it's essentially a similar approach. You need to copy the config into the Ansible inventory folder, and you need to adjust it to match your environment. So
That would be under the.
so if you go back to the command line, you've already checked it out. So it's under that folder that was in quality. But like I say, there's one file you shouldn't show because it has
Yep.
passwords in it.
Okay, cool.
But so this time you're going to go back up in the toolkit. You're going to go to the toolkit / Ansible, and then
How many folders back do I do? 1, 2, 3,
right,
4.
maybe another one. I think, yeah.
Quality.
No, sorry. So what you want to do is I'm going to guide you to the folder where the config should live and get, and then you'd be copying the same like
okay.
you did with Terraform.
So I'd want to get out of Terraform. Correct.
Yeah, get out of Terraform and then pop into Ansible.
Yep.
The folder for Ansible, again, we try and stick to what the actual tool terminology is. So the folder for Ansible is called inventories. If you jump in there, you should see something pretty similar. It should be empty with a reboot.
Gotcha.
So this time you want to copy across. So it's the quality /10k AWS /Ansible _inventory. Again, the idea is that you copy it in here and you change the name to the one you want it to be.
Cool. Should I grab the GCP one and we'll modify that?
No, it should the AWS one would be the correct one to get. Yeah. Ansible is should be quite dynamic. It doesn't need to know about too much. It should be able to figure stuff out itself. So
no, I see what I've done now. I went to 10k.
Yeah, underscore AWS should be fine. Yeah. And then Ansible inventory.
Yeah, cool. And copy that here. Just the YAML file. There's no recursive. Oh, do I need vars as well?
You need to copy the folder over just like Terraform. So
okay.
Just like Terraform, there's several little files there to configure.
Yep. So does that look correct?
Yeah, and then you just want to rename that folder to what you call that one, just to keep it harmonized. Really, it's not a requirement. It's just makes it easier to know which one's for which.
Yeah, cool. And should I open up the 10k inventory file? Or should we start with files?
Well, so for this level, if you can go back up and rename the folder, if that's all right, you rename the Terraform one to like GitLab support or AWS support something.
So you mean rename the Ansible inventory into that?
Yeah, because I just want to highlight that this isn't the name should be changed to the name. This folder represents the specific environment. So
yep.
Whatever you want to call it. Usually we have the same name across both, but yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I can't remember what I called the other one.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever works really.
It's just AWS support example. I think it's still on screen at the top.
Oh,
there we go. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I was AWS. I think that was the same.
Cool. Well, close enough. It's just to highlight that. The folder looks quite generic when it's called Ansible inventory, but it's because of the structure of the Discover project. The folder above it is actually called 10k, or the environment name. So that's just to highlight that. So yeah, we start with so you can look at the 10k. So yeah, we can't look at the vars one here because as passwords in it. The passwords don't really matter. They're things that we generate for our environments, but we actually use this environments every day, so it's probably better not to spell them out. So
yeah, fair enough.
Look at this one file. Look at this one first. There's actually nothing you need to change here, but I just want to just to show it. This is a Ansible direct dynamic inventory. This configures Ansible to go off to AWS, log in with the same authentication details, in this case it's Terraform, and actually get back a list of VMs that have been deployed in AWS. Terraform for the modules actually applies labels or tags depending on, it's the same idea. They have little tags on each VM, which then Ansible will look out for and actually then categorize each VM into different whatever it's for. So usually in a bigger environment, you'll have GitLab VMs, you'll have GitLab Rails VMs, etc. And through these key groups here, that actually separates them out. So then Ansible knows exactly what each VM is for and how to treat them. So there's nothing to change here, but it's just to call out that that's what this file does.
I think there's two things to change. Yeah, the region and the node prefix.
I'm so used to not changing those, so that's the problem.
Yes, we don't change.
We pretty much keep them the same.
But I understand what you're saying, because the rest of it would be built on the tags.
Yeah, the rest of it should be.
The node prefix should match what you called within Terraform. So in the Terraform config, you made a prefix. They need to be the same.
Okay,
so yeah,
cool.
this is another little thing that we do actually call it in GCP as well, just in case. But because in GCP there's a concept of projects. That usually means you have different project for each environment. That's usually the recommendation. So each project usually just has the VM specific to the environment. But when you have more than one environment in either project, or in AWS's case, it doesn't even have that as a concept. AWS, everything's flat. VMs will go into the same place in your area. And you need to tell Ansible not to try and connect to VMs that aren't ones that you want it to. So that's what that tag is for. It's just to say it should be ones that are only with the prefix that you configured in Terraform. So
cool. So it isolates the environment, basically.
It isolates the VMs, yeah. So it should be the same. I forget we actually called it in Terraform's GitLab support, I think. But,
cool. I'll find it here. And the node prefix was
maybe in variables tier.
Okay. It's in the state file.
It's the same.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And save and quit.
Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah. So I'll look at the virus file myself quickly, just make sure there's nothing that you need to change in there. Typically, for a standard install, there isn't. But yeah, again, don't show it here because it has got passwords in it.
Yeah, no worries.
In the real world quotation marks, someone would be expected to go through and change a few things in it. So you probably want to open it up actually off screen. Yeah, there's a few things that change.
Okay, yep, I'll do that over.
If that's all right.
I'll do it on completely from window.
So we will have a sanitized example of this file in the docs when we update it. There should probably already be one similar to GCP if you want to show on this screen under the Ansible docs. And again, we try and keep them as close as each other, really, depending on the cloud provider. But there's always a little. So there's always some little things that need to be changed. So for example, in this case, AWS, the default user that the VMs have will be one called Ubuntu, whereas in GCP it'll be root. So
yeah.
Just little things that we can't really change. So yeah.
Yep.
So in this file, have you got open on your second screen?
Yep, almost. So Ansible inventories, and okay, so it's open on my second screen now.
Yeah, so for this one, for this demo, we do these change a few things. So the top one is cloud provider that's set to AWS. Let's just tell Ansible that what cloud provider it should be configuring for. That's not Ansible itself communicating with AWS. That's just for our own logic when configuring GitLab. Just it's mainly for like object storage and stuff. Just to say, you know, every cloud provider is different. So it's a setting that we use for our stuff. It's not particular to Ansible, but so that stays the same. Prefix, you change it to the same prefix as the others. So that'll be GitLab support 10K test.
Okay. Cool.
It's annoying you have to set it twice, but it just explained a little bit behind that. The Ansible dynamic inventory and the actual Ansible scripts are kind of separated. They're
Yeah.
two different parts. The first bit Ansible goes off, gets the VMs, and then it comes in and does the scripts. So the variables actually, it's a funny old game really. Some variables apply, some don't. So it's always better just to find it twice. So yeah, so external URL, you actually want to change that to the URL of the environment, which will be your external IP that you configured earlier. So the URL is obviously with HTTP as well. So
that'll be
so yeah,
this Elastic IP.
yeah, copy that. Yeah, that should be that. That should be that one. Yeah. So what's actually happened there is that the modules were dynamic, and they detected that there was a HProxy external node, and automatically configured that to be attached. So
Yeah, brilliant, awesome.
so you should hopefully just need to. But Ansible doesn't have that knowledge, so you need to tell it.
Yeah.
Because then it passes that to GitLab to say you're configuring on this URL now.
Yeah.
So yeah, update that one. Ansible is the same in AWS's case. It stays as Ubuntu. Obviously, when we get to the point where we're updating to support different OSs, that might change, but that's where it is for now. Private SSH key file. That's the private SSH key of the public one you added in Terraform.
Yeah.
Again, we've made this relative because that's how we do it in our setup for our config files. So we have everything in a flat structure, but again, it doesn't matter. As long as it points to the actual private file that matches the public file.
Yep.
On your local machine, then that's all it needs.
Yep. Cool. Okay. So I've put that in.
Yeah, license file. You can actually just delete that setting.
Yep.
A license file obviously isn't required all the time. Depends on what features you're looking for.
Yep.
We do have a license file for testing, so we have that configured there, but you can take that out.
Yeah. Cool.
The virus file really is the main config file for GitLab, for configuring GitLab via Get and Ansible. We've aimed to make it so that all the config goes here. So sometimes you'll see config from us that doesn't apply, so you can just leave it, and the rest should be fine.
Yep.
Unless I'm forgetting anything. I mean, technically you can actually delete some since you're doing a 1K, but
does it use environment variables to configure those, or sort of like the way Docker might?
we could do that in the future. You can also do that yourself.
The only reason I ask is like, will it get tripped up if there's something there which shouldn't be there? Like if we create the 1K instance and we just have the other variables there, or the other set, the other variables there which shouldn't be there, will they cause any issues?
So at the moment, we won't output those variables in the command line or anything else. So this is actually just Ansible config at this point. You can actually replace, as long as those settings exist, with obviously the passwords in them. How you actually want to do that is up to you. So you can actually change those to actually say an Ansible code, actually check for this environment variable instead, if it's present. So, but for now, we still have to document the various options you can use there, but it is very open. You can use Ansible vaults, or you can do, there's various ways, as long as those settings exist at runtime with the passwords setting them, then how they get there is up to the user. So for this one, I think, just double checking, yeah, there's things there, it probably doesn't matter, but we'll just run with it, we won't change that right now. Yeah.
Okay, save out.
Yep.
Cool.
That's fine. So that should be that then. So first, what we'll do is Ansible doesn't, because it's a different tool and obviously things are different. Ansible doesn't need to be run from the actual config file. In fact, it needs to be run from its main folder because there's actions there. So if you head up to the Ansible folder, and we'll do an inventory first just to show you the dynamic inventory working and the Ansible is correctly picking up the VMs. So you want to do an Ansible -inventory command. It's one command, sorry.
Ah, yep.
Ansible -inventory, yeah. -I.
Dash I, yep.
Yeah, and then you're going to go for just the relative path to the inventory folder. So that's inventories. And then it'd be what we call it. I think it's GitLab something.
Cool.
Yeah. and then I think what you the command needs an extra few extra things. Give me a second. By myself. Ansible inventory. Yeah, and then just at the very end is the -- graph flag, just to make it output correctly.
Like that?
That's it, and then just try that, yeah.
Ah, cool.
Okay, so that's actually good to run because to do this, it needs to be able to authenticate against AWS, and then it also show you if it sees the VMs correctly. So this obviously failed. So let's go through this. So okay, yeah. So that's my fault for not telling you those steps. So Ansible has some dependencies that need to be installed on the command line. So
Yeah.
if you go to the docs, actually, we should actually try and follow those. Make sure that nothing's missing. So
I could probably just Google this one.
No, if you go to the docs, they should all be there. So I want to make sure that's there. So yeah, if you go to the docs, scroll to the top and go to you'll see the yeah. So you want to configure the environment Ansible, yeah. So let's click on that. And so Boto won't be called out specifically because it's actually in a file called plugins. So overview install Ansible. So what we want to do is click on install Ansible, I think. Step 1 in that list there.
Yep. Cool.
So yeah, those instructions there is what needs to be followed. So we've already got 2 lists of all the Ansible Python dependencies, Python packages that Ansible needs to run here, and as well as Ansible Galaxy collections, which are Ansible playbooks that are third party that we depend on. So if you run those 2 commands from this folder, that should address those issues.
Yep. Cool.
You'll need to specifically use the pip that's associated to your Python. So yeah, it should be pip. Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have to install pip.
Yeah, we had to make it pip free in the examples because, like, say Ubuntu gets a bit silly here and has both, and if you install it to pip 2 and Ansible runs on Python 3, then it won't see the packages. And, we try and lock everything to free because 2 has been deprecated now for months. So
yeah,
but a lot of the OS is still use it by default. It's very annoying.
Yeah, yep. I've been down that path before with Python.
Yeah, it's a painful path, but
I think
must
be virtual env for the package for Python, something like that.
Yeah, you can go for virtual envs and stuff, but that was in the period previously when 2 and 3 were still both active. But now 2's dead. We don't want to go down the route of trying to do both. We just strongly recommend 3 and go with that.
Yeah.
Which does involve some extra steps required on the OSs. Just make sure that 3 is the default. But
yeah. Ansible Galaxy. Yeah, I feel like I've learned a whole lot in this call, which is excellent.
I mean, the vast majority of what we've done here is just standard Terraform and Ansible actions. We try very strongly to try and make sure that we're not doing anything too crazy outside of what those tools are, because those tools are doing what we want them to do. One is designed for provisioning VMs, that one is designed to configure them. And so all the steps you see are just standard Ansible and Terraform steps. The only thing we've done is actually done the actual scripts in Ansible or Terraform just to configure the things that we need. So, okay, so that should be all good, really. So let's try the Ansible inventory command again.
Yep.
Oh, we didn't.
Did we actually run the pip command? I think that's
just
the output.
Yeah, we installed pip, and we didn't actually run the pip command. Yeah. So yeah, run that. Yeah, not without the 3, because you're running on 2. So in this case, so that should be fine. That's installed in Boto there, you can see. Which is the weird name of Ansible, AWS's Python authentication library.
Oh,
They
right.
called it, but, that's what they called it. So, and then you see Azure is installing as well. But we install everything just to, you know, for easiness sake. But Azure is unfortunately is a little bit more involved for the first time.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Microsoft decided to package it. I don't know. They packaged everything together, and you can now pick and choose for some reason.
Oh,
Or you
really?
can pick and choose, but then you don't know which ones you need to pick and choose because they're all very broken down into very specific things. And he's like, I don't know actually which ones Ansible requires to do this particular action, so they all have to go. So, but this like this and doing the configuration, this is all very much a one and done, really, in theory. So after all this is done once, maybe occasionally you need to run them again just to make sure you've got the latest packages. But this shouldn't have to be run. You wouldn't see this full install ever again.
Yeah, understood. Yeah. I mean, the way the customer would use this is going to be very different from the way we use it in support. We're going to be bringing stuff up, tearing it down.
Yeah, so this is where, having that separate repo and what we've done, in that repo, you'll see a little script that I wrote, literally a bash script that just says copy the right files into the right folders for all the environments that we manage, which is not something that customers really do. So this is where we have to try and balance get to run for customers as well as for development users. So you might want to feel free to reach out and look at that quality project a bit more and see what we've done there to try and help us with our specific requirements, because that's probably what support is going to be doing as well.
yeah, definitely. I think that I did not know that existed previously. So
yeah, we haven't called it in the docs yet. Maybe I have called it a little bit, but we need to figure out the right way to actually give the right examples to customers, because as I say, there's some stuff in it that's passwords are encrypted. So
yeah,
it was the actual live essentially environment. So we're still to tackle that one yet.
okay, cool. We're coming up on the hour. We're
pretty close.
in a hurry? We're in a hurry? Like close?
Not in
Cool.
a hurry. We're pretty close, yeah. So with that's correctly detected the environment is logged in, and so we're all the bases are working. As you see, it actually gives you a list there, and what happens there is it shows you how Ansible has parsed the tags I mentioned earlier and actually categorized each VM correctly into its own group. The idea is that Terraform and Ansible, they're obviously two separate tools, but Terraform is the one that actually sets tags, and that's what Ansible then detects them. In the future, for customers, if they only want to use the Ansible scripts, which is what we expect probably will happen more often than not, you'd use a static inventory, which you actually go into a inventory file and actually just list out every single VM statically. But in that file will be given guidance of you need to give these labels in the inventory to these VMs, again, for Ansible to be able to know which one is which. So this should always be the case. You should always see these separated VMs. So now it's actually just the run command now. So that's Ansible playbook. So similar commands: playbook -I inventories / GitLab support, and then there's multiple playbooks in Ansible. For most users, they'll only need to run the all.yaml playbook. But what all is just it's a amalgamation of all the other. There's playbooks for every single component in GitLab, as well as a few others that like ones for doing a few post setup tasks. All covers them all. So if you just run it all now, you should shoot from goal. For 1K, this will probably take several minutes, maybe a bit more. So whether you want to continue or not, it's up to you. But barring we don't see any major issues to begin with, this will just now, Ansible will now go through each VM and configure it and set up GitLab, essentially.
Brilliant.
Automatically, in theory.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. And this is deploying Omnibus onto each EC2 instance. Is that right? Omnibus
will go, in this case, actually, no, rarely, ironically, Omnibus only gets deployed to the GitLab Rails in this case. In a bigger environment, it gets deployed to all the individual component VMs, Redis, Gately, etc. What Git does is that also sets up a few supporting nodes for environment of this. So hproxy is installed with Docker, NFS is just installed normally, but yeah, so it installs on the bus where it needs to be installed, essentially, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, cool. Awesome.
So while this is running, probably better just to see if you have any additional questions or asks
Um,
or anything really, we can discuss that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we've covered the stuff that I was really interested to know. How to reduce that from 10K down to 1K was a big one. Let me bring up my notes for a moment. If we could EC2, we've got a good understanding now of how the pieces fit together, and I think that's going to really help us. I think having access to the quality repo, I keep losing my.
Yeah, for now that'd be really useful. Obviously, in the future we'll have document examples of all the providers and how that should go.
Yeah. Yep.
We're just not there yet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But,
Cool. Is there
we
somewhere
have
I can see?
examples. We have examples of the docs for 10K, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I can say again.
And is this the 10K environment? Is it supporting Geo at the moment? Do you know?
Geo is so Geo is a weird one in the sense that Geo is like a layer on top of two separate environments. So we've actually configured it that way. So if you actually go to the top of the docs there, we actually do have that fully documented already. So
Okay.
docs, you'll see the last page. There's advanced environment setups, and that one covers it. Well, we're still doing the documentation, so that might change in the future, but there will be a page that calls it Geo. And Geo, yeah, what the guidance is that you set up the environments normally, two separate environments, and then you come in and do the Geo piece. So there's a bit of extra config involved that needs to be put in Terraform and Ansible. And but then after that, it should just run and should just work in theory.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, because at the moment for us to set up a Geo environment takes quite a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. I mean, that's all from me. I think I've learned a huge amount, and I'm ready to dive in and start playing around with this and share the video with the rest of the team so that they can.
Yeah, we're excited to see this expand. Yeah, we're still, as you can see, there's still bits we're still needing to get done. So
Yeah.
it is, we're not suggesting this is ready for customers yet. For customers, there's also going to be a bit more polish required to prevent you guys from getting multiple questions.
Yeah.
which usually what happens. If we miss something in the docs, then support gets the request from the customers. So we still need to polish some things around that. Docs is the big one there, and just polishing some bits. Obviously, this tool's gained a lot of interest. We're trying to address multiple teams at once and their requests, which are all valid. So we're just trying to prioritize that. So anything you have, feel free to reach out on the GitLab Environment Toolkit Slack channel, or feel free to raise issues over the GitLab Environment Toolkit project. We will try and manage stuff. If you want to take a crack at adding support yourself, then feel free. But we do suggest you go from have at least a good working knowledge of Ansible and Terraform. Once you have that working knowledge, the rest of it really should be quite readable for most users, because again, we very much just stick to what Terraform and Ansible suggest. We don't do anything too crazy or special. So yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, that's great to know. I want to say, huge thanks for running me through this, and yeah, and I think we'll start playing around with it. We'll probably break it, a few of us, and submit some bug fixes and things like that. So yeah, it'd be good to have that sort of partnership between both teams, and see how it works out, I suppose.
All right then.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
And yeah, and we'll touch base in the future, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Cheers.
Thanks for your time then.
All right.
See you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye.